This segment will show you how to assemble the snow thrower. First, remove the nylon tie that holds the chute crank rod to the crank rod support tube. Then you can assemble the crank rod support tube Part 3 to the bracket on the left side of the discharge housing. Insert 2 carriage bolts Part K from the inside through the bolt holes in the bracket and then the support tube, and place 2 nylock nuts Part V on the ends of the bolts. Next, take the chute and control cable assembly and attach it to the top side of the crank rod support tube Part 3 using 2 carriage bolts Part J. Secure the carriage bolts on the other end, first placing on the bolts 2 bowed washers Part S and then 2 nylock nuts Part V. Next, take the brackets for the chute crank rod assembly Part 2 and attach them to the plastic bracket that is on the left side of the discharge housing. To do this, first align the chute crank bracket underneath the rod support bracket and then attach both to the plastic bracket by inserting 2 carriage bolts Part L. Then place 2 washers Part P and 2 nylock nuts Part V on the ends of the bolts. Do not fully tighten these nuts yet. Now take some general purpose grease and coat the top of the ring around the discharge opening. Then place the discharge chute onto the ring in a forward-facing position. Place the anti-rotation bracket Part 5 on top of the chute flange, aligning it with the holes on the right side of the flange. Attach the 3 chute keepers with the right side up to the bottom of the flange using 6 hex bolts Part D. First, place a flat washer Part O on the bolts and then insert the bolts from the top all the way through the aligned holes in the parts. Secure the bolts on the bottom using 6 flange lock nuts Part X. Tighten each of the bolts carefully so that the nuts are snug, but they don't dig into the plastic chute keepers. Now place the plastic cap Part FF onto the short end of the anti-rotation bracket. Then position the crank rod spiral so it doesn't rub against the bottoms of the notches in the chute flange and tighten all of these nuts. Now check to make sure the crank rod rotates the chute so that it moves freely. If it doesn't, you need to loosen each of the hex bolts by 1/4 turn until it does move freely. Last, take 2 of the plastic ties and secure the control cables to the crank rod support tube to keep them organized.